Yeah, present. Let me share the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Are you able to see it? Great. So before starting, I would like to thank you guys because you are giving us the possibility to present our last research regarding the cost of artificial latency in PBS context. I am Umberto, a quantitative researcher at Chorus One, and also Michael should be here. So if Michael, you want to jump in any time, just do it. But yeah, let's go straight into the presentation. Let's say that I would like to divide the presentation in 3 different topics. The first one regards a way to provide an unbiased estimate for the MEV improvement compared with the vanilla MEV boost case, that is the one where you don't have artificial latency. The second part of the presentation will be devoted to highlight some of the bad externalities from timing games, trying to estimate the actual cost, not in terms of consensus layer rewards, but in terms of execution layer rewards that also matter in this type of games. And the last part will be focused on disclose our findings from a real case implementation. That is a pilot that we were running since August with internal capital, so a small capital, to avoid providing too much consequences for the network. Okay, let's start with the first part. Basically, to estimate the MEV increase, we need several factors. The first one is the network distribution of bit time selection. This will allow us to basically have the distribution of the size of MEV increase per block. And if we combine this estimate with the per block MEV distribution, and with the expected selection for proposer with a specific voting power, we basically can estimate the expected return from this type of games that are really important to assess, because when we apply a delay, we need to compare with the theoretical expectation, of course, to understand if we are performing well. So here you can see the distribution of the eligibility time. I think you already saw it before, but this is in a slightly different way of presenting it. And as you can see from the right part of the plot, where you have the cumulative probability distribution for the bit time selection, there is a small portion of voting power that is pushing the auction above the 1 second, but the let's say 80% of 90% of the voting power is still selecting bid below this threshold, and the median case is consistent with the hypothesis that the majority of the voting power of the node operator is not playing this type of game because it's around 240 milliseconds. Okay, once we have this distribution, we can basically extract a possible eligibility time for a bit selection, since the two are correlated, so we can use one instead of the other to understand what happened if we delay the auction up to 950 milliseconds. Here I'm using 950 milliseconds because what we actually have here is the bid selection time. So this means that the block is made eligible for the validator, for the proposer, around above 1 second. So this means that if we go above this 950 milliseconds, likely we start to see degradation on consensus layer reward for the whole network. Sorry. But what we have is the probability density function of the distribution of MEV increase per block that is highly skewed, meaning that in the most of the cases you will get an increase that will be below 2%, because as you can see here, the median case is below 2%. But you still have a very long tail. So now what we should do to reach the final goal is to combine this observation, so the probability distribution of MEV increase per block, with the actual size of MEV distribution per block. So if we do that, and we can use both distribution because the two events are uncorrelated, are independent, we can run simulation using these two information combined with the expected number of selection as a proposer in a year for two different voting power. And what we can obtain is, in this case, the weekly MEV increase expected by a node operator that is running with different voting power. Here we are comparing a voting power of 15% with a much more modest voting power of 1%. As you can see, the first effect, the first observation is that both distribution are located around 5% increase. That is the median of both distribution. But the validator with lower voting power is experiencing more variance. So this means that is not able to provide an higher APR at the end of the year without managing properly the risk of doing such type of latency gain. Because of course, higher variance means that you can go into the lower tail and experience the bad externalities of this. And the other observation is that as the time horizon extends, the variance for any voting power profile will basically diminish and concentrate around this 5% of MEV increase per block. And if we assume that the execution layer rewards constitute roughly 30% of all rewards, this means an increase with this type of latency game of 1.67% in the final APR. And this is a significant margin. And of course, node operators are incentivized to capture it. But playing this type of game, of course, has a cost for the whole network. One is the one that is obvious, that is related to the consensus layer rewards, because if you delay the auction, as we said before, if you delay the auction too much, you can start to see a downgradation on the attestation accuracy. But there are also effects on execution layer reward for the subsequent proposer. Let's try to understand why. Here, if we look at the distribution, at what happened at the bid distribution when we basically enlarge the auction time, you can observe that we do not we also have an increase in gas use, because of course you are building higher block, larger block, and you can project this effect on the subsequent slot, basically by computing the expected burnt heat increase or the base fee increase for the subsequent slot. And if you collect the information and you compute the distribution for the expected increase, you have that, of course, the median increase is modest because it's around 0.4%. So at the first glance, it seems that the effect on the network is negligible. However, what you have is that if you have a modest increase in the base fee in the due to a latency game that has been played in the previous lot, and this increase is such that you can still have that the max fee is higher than this new base fee. The priority fee may stay the same, could stay the same. So this means that this doesn't change. But of course, the reward, the execution layer reward that the proposer gets at the end of the slot will decrease because the difference between the max fee and the base fee has decreased. Of course, this also applies to on-chain MEV, like for example, DEX-to-DEX arbitrage, because the size of MEV stay the same, but who is extracting this portion of math needs to balance the new change in the base fee. So at the end, this means that the subsequent validator may experience a reduction of the execution layer rewards. So this is one of the first reduction that we saw in our analysis. But you also have that, of course, when you allow for a longer auction, you have more transaction entering into the mempool, and you have that builder starts to add more transaction to the final block. So you have also a correlation between the number of transaction and the eligibility time, or the number of transactions and the bid rewards. So this means that transactions that may have been included in the next plot now land into the current one, meaning that you are still extracting something from the subsequent validator by playing this timing game.
Umberto, sorry,
yes,
if I can ask a specific question on this graph, because it's quite interesting. Is this the number of actual transactions that would be included, or it's just number of transactions in general?
Yeah, basically we looked into the auction and we considered the number of transactions that would have been included if you delay the auction up to, in this case, 2 seconds.
Okay, so this accounts for there being enough space in the block, enough gas basically left over, and actually the priority fee of the transaction and the base fee obviously being enough to get included. Okay, cool.
Right.
And was there also an analysis done on whether the transaction would still be valid in the next block or not?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, we need to explore this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the really difficult part.
Yeah, because you need data that actually you don't have
exactly.
for free, let's say. But thanks for the question, because I think that it's something that needs to be explored. Because of course, also the dynamic on priority and max fee change a bit. You can have an heuristic about a possible outcome, but overall you are not sure of how the dynamic actually change the user behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, but let's say that overall, for large node operator, this reduction on execution layer reward should not affect too much the final APR, because they, of course, are able to experience different side of the variance when they face this random distribution of rewards. However, for a small node operator, I mean, there are some problems, some issues related with the small node operator, because they are exposed disproportionately to more variance. And if they happen to be in the long tail of bad externalities, they are not able to recover at the end of the year or at the end of a specific period the downgrade that they experienced from another player that was playing this type of timing game. Further, small node operators are not really able to collect enough data to respond quickly to network transition. So if something happened and they need to reduce the delay in order to avoid missing too much slot, probably they will not be able to do so until it's too late, because they generated so much loss that are actually difficult to recover using only MEV increase. And of course, once you start to increase this difference between large node operator and small node operator, what you have is that you are creating a vector decentralization. And now, let's say that we are in a very difficult situation, because we recognize that within this context, having more validators that are playing this timing game, you have that the benchmark for the standard APR increased. Because actually, as we saw in the theoretical case, you have an increase of the overall APR of 1.7%, something like that. So node operators are compelled to employ this type of optimization as a matter of strategic necessity. But what we want to present now is, let's say, a way to understand better what's happening at the microscopic level. So how validator can interact with the specific relay, and what happened at the end as final estimate. But also we want to point out, as we will see at the end, that even if you play a game that is not so much aggressive, you can still have a portion of the reward that is comparable with this theoretical case where everything stays below the 950 milliseconds. So this is why we started in August this pilot that we called Adagio, inspired by music theory, where played adagio means perform slowly but with great expression. And we ran this experiment using self-founded validators with 100 self-founded validator. And this is not a product that we provided for our client. And we want to disclose our finding because we believe that there are some really interesting points in what we found. And we also want to stress that we don't want to run this type of optimization for Lido, because we believe that Lido needs to be a neutral infrastructure. But that said, let's go into the details, some of the details of our experiment. Basically, what we did was to use internal data to tune the relay as a variable of our experiment, where basically we assign different delay for different relay having different feature and located, of course, in different region, geographically located in different region. So we have 4 setup. The first one is the benchmark, that is the one without delay, that is not optimistic. The second one is an aggressive setup, where basically we delayed the get-header request as much as reasonably possible, without introducing too much risk for us, but of course always staying below the 950 millisecond. And this is again not non-optimistic relay. And we have two setup, one normal, that is a rational delay that you can introduce for a relay that is optimistic, and a moderate setup where we use a very conservative choice in the delay, and this is again optimistic. And okay, so what this picture is basically, this is the time distribution of bid selection as seen internally by our validator. And on the right side, instead, you have the corresponding bid selection, eligibility time for the corresponding bid. So what you can observe is that the aggressive setup even if it is the one with the higher value for the delay, is still not competitive with the normal one that is optimistic, but with a lower delay. But it is able to perform better in terms of bid selection with respect to the moderate setup. That is optimistic, and we will do an observation about that later. But overall, if you take the distribution of instead of the eligibility time for the winning bids, what you have is that the shape of the distribution remains exactly the shape of the normal setup, meaning that it is the setup that is basically driving the auction for the Adagio experiment. And we have that all bids are selected above, very well above the 1 second slot time. And precisely the 95% quantile is below the 900 millisecond. And the median is around 600 millisecond. And here you can see the comparison with the network. This is basically the same distribution I presented on the second slide, third probably, but in a different way of visualizing it. Okay, but as we say, now we have two factors that we need to account. The first one is that we have a distribution in the eligibility time, meaning that in our theoretical case, what we had was to assume that we were always able to hit the 950 milliseconds. Instead, now we are both playing a game at a lower threshold, but we are also experiencing, of course, as expected, fluctuation because we can control the delay to the relay, but we can't control how the relay performs, basically. So if there is some sort of problem related with the relay, you cannot do anything about that. But if you compare the two distribution of having MEV increase per block, you have that the Adagio setup slightly differ from the theoretical expectation. And if you go further and try to compute the annual MEV increase, you have that you are probably 5% lower with respect to the theoretical case, with a 4.75% median increase in annual MEV. That again means if we assume that the execution layer reward are roughly 30% of the total reward, this means that you are increasing your APR by 1.58%. That is still comparable with what we observed in the theoretical case. Of course, you still you have now a higher variance that is due both to the low capital employed to this experiment, but it's also due to the fact that you are not always sampling at 950 milliseconds or 800 or whatever. You experience an intrinsic variance, Okay, but what are the our conclusion from the pilot and what we can learn? The first thing is that there are some relays that can consistently compete through an artificial delay with other. And there are also relays that aware of this behavior might strategically delay the response to enhance their chance of providing the best bid. So this means that basically what you are, this experiment show some hint for relay that might start to provide delay as a service as explored in an IT research post from Kasper. I think that Pavel or Vlad linked it in the presentation. that's an interesting finding because it may shift the how we see timing games today. But also that if you operate with a less aggressive setup, you still have the possibility to enhance your MEV reward without affecting too much the network in terms of consensus layer reward. Of course, the bad externalities for the execution layer reward probably are not possible to cannot be avoided. So let's try to recap. What we observed is that the timing game can provide a 5% increase in MEV reward with respect to a case where you are not applying a delay. Of course, assuming that you are behaving as the network. So this means that you need to assume that the whole network shift from not having a delay to have a delay around 950 milliseconds. And there is some pressure on node operator to employ this latency optimization. But of course, there is a cost in applying this, in playing this game that mostly affects small node operator. So this means that the timing game could be seen as a vector to centralization. And the last point is that our current setup, even if it's playing a game that is not too aggressive, it's still providing results that are comparable with the theoretical case where we hit each time 950 milliseconds. And we believe that it's important to disclose our finding with the goal of understand and mitigate these competitive dynamics, and also to start a discussion on this type of topics, because we believe that our main role is to build, is to help to understand what's happening and build the future. And if you are interested, here there is a QR code pointing to the Yet Research discussion, and we hope that you'll join the discussion because, again, I think that it's really important to explore this kind of topics. I don't know if, Michael, you want to add something?
No, not at this point in time. So, by the way, hello, everybody. Michael here. I think we can go into the questions.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot, Umberto. That was a really, really great presentation. I see two questions from Vladislav in chat. Vladi, do you just want to ask?
Yeah, I can, but partially, actually, Umberto covered this question. So it was very interesting if you observe any problems with particular MEV relays in your budget setup, just because we observed problem with block sort actually. So interested to know if you have any insight about it. And the second one, when you showed us increase in MEV rewards and so on, how large sample do you have?
Okay, let's start with the first one. As you can see here, we actually experienced some issue because with relays, because the aggressive setup was not supposed to respond in this region. Because actually this is the bit selection time as seen by the inside the validator. So it's not the winning bit. It's just how the relay responds to our delay. And this distribution should always be above the distribution of the normal relay. But as you can see, there is a tail here. And also the benchmark setup should probably stay much lower. The is it likely 600 milliseconds, and for the sample size, I think it's a random sample of 4,000 slots, something between 2,000, I don't remember the exact number, something between 2,000 and 4,000 slots. And the period should be consistent with the Adagio, so end of August of this year up to now. I mean, now not, but when we released the research, that was a week ago.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answers.
Yeah, just to add one point here, I mean, we've definitely experienced relays at being this kind of heterogeneous entities. So even beyond that, we noticed that certain relays, or one relay specifically, had a higher probability of leading to a misthought, even if you don't introduce an artificial latency parameter. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely one learning we had, that these relays tend to diverge